Stephen, welcome to the show. Man, we are in the Carolinas together, huh?
We are.
That's awesome. I always love having people on from all over the place, but it always feels like home when we're twinned up here in the Carolinas, and not too far from here. We're just outside of Charlotte. You're a couple hours away from Charlotte here. Hey, let's jump right into this. Why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about your journey? You're not a physician, I'm not a physician, so I always like to throw that out there first. But tell us a little bit about where you started professionally and kind of how you stumbled into real estate.
Absolutely. So 10 years ago, I got into this great business called real estate. But the journey really started before that, dating back to my time at High Point University. My senior year, I took a real estate class there and really fell in love with real estate. And so I was a little bit scared for a few years. When I graduated college, $75,000 in student loan debt. I got a retail store management job making $45,000 a year, and I wanted something more. I come from parents that were entrepreneurs, blue collar workers, and I just wanted something more. And I thought back to my time at High Point University and the class that I took there in the real estate class, and really I knew that's what I wanted to do. And luckily, I was able to link up with a local investor here in the Carolinas that taught me everything that I needed to know and really led me in the right direction. And he was looking at downsizing, spend more time with his family. I was looking at growing, and he told me to read this book called Building Wealth by Russell Whitney. And it's really a play-by-play of how Russell did his business, and Joel, my mentor, did his business after, and then I followed in their footsteps. And fast forward 10 years, a decade later, several hundred rental units later, now own money. I flip houses, writing a book. Book will be out March the 12th, The New American Dream, and then also now launching Sorex Consulting last year as well. I want to really give back to that next generation that's trying to get in to this great business called real estate.
And that first deal, it sounds like a single family residential house.
Yes. So I actually bought two houses side by side, and I bought them both from my mentor. I got the down payment off the credit card. My strategy has always been buy the worst house on the block, because when you buy the best house on the block, there's not a ton of value you can add. It's already the best. But when you buy the worst house on the block, you can add a ton of sweat equity to it to make it what you want it to be. You're improving the neighborhood, the community, but then the value of growing there is so much better because you're getting a better deal on it. And that's what I exactly did. I went in, I bought the two worst houses on that block, and I fixed them up. I refinanced them and pulled that money back out that I had in it. That way I could pay the credit card off. I could put a little bit of money in my pocket, and then I rolled to the next deal. So I didn't go use that money to go buy a nice boat or a nice car or anything like that. I rolled that money straight into the next property.
Tell us a little bit more then about the returns on this first deal. Just starting, what does that look like? So it sounds like you got a loan for the acquisition. And
Yes.
did that include the cost of renovation? How were you able to fund the renovation then?
Yeah, so I initially got the loan. It wasn't a construction loan. It was just a straight loan. And then I pulled more money off the credit card to actually fix the properties up. And then once the properties were fixed up, I was able to refinance, pull my working capital back out, because you got to keep in mind, I bought it super cheap because it needed work. Once I did the sweat equity in the property, now the property is worth a lot more money. And so that 85% I was able to pull out, which a lot of days now it's more 70 to 80% that you normally can pull. But I was able to pull that money back out and roll it into the next property. And so I try to be very responsible with that money, because I know it was borrowed money. So, you don't want to borrow money to go blow the money. You want to borrow the money for that money to continue to make you money.
Yeah, good debt, bad debt. Never borrow money and buy a liability.
And when I evaluate a deal, I always evaluate it at the low end, right? Because if you know it's going to cash flow in a down market, it's really going to cash flow in a market like today. Rents have doubled. here in the last 10 years. And so that's the cool part, when you don't necessarily know what the future holds, you don't know what the rents are going to hold, but what you can do some educated guessing of okay, if it cash flows in the down market, I know if it goes up, it can certainly cash flow. And that's exactly, what it's done.
It makes me think, are you spread out? Like what markets, what does your reach look like?
Yep, so I'm in 3 different counties, and those counties touch each other. So my mentor told me very early on, you want to cluster units together. So you don't want to be from one end of the state to the other end of the state, because if you actually have to go to those properties, that takes you a long time to get there. And so what I've strategically done is cluster properties. So one of the counties I'm in here in North Carolina is Alamance. You can get to all of those properties in Alamance County within 5 to 10 minutes of each other. So same way in Rockingham, same way in Guilford. You can get to any of my properties from from the furthest property east to the furthest property northwest, 35 minutes. And so that way, when you start thinking about maintenance and, if you're using third-party vendors and that sort of thing, all of that costs you money. So they have to drive 45 minutes to an hour. More than likely, they're not driving there for free. You have to pay them to go there. And so I just try to be as strategic as possible. And it's worked out very well for me.
We talk about these prepayment penalties, something to watch out for if you're looking to refi, making sure the product fits for you. What type of products are you using right now?
Yep, so I've used several different things over the years. I've used bank financing. And when I talk about bank financing, it is the local hometown bankers. It's not these huge, big banks. The experience that I have is the bigger banks don't want to loan on residential rental property, not unless it's $200,000 or $300,000 house. And so sometimes with that, you can kind of price yourself out. Your return's not going to be potentially as great. And your money doesn't go as far. But local hometown bankers, that a handshake means something. The second is seller financing. I've brokered a lot of deals where there might be older people kind of on the back nine of life that doesn't want to manage the rental properties anymore, and they don't want to get killed with taxes. So they're like, hey, let's structure a deal where it makes sense for us both. And so I've done seller financing. There's also a hard money loan lenders out there as well. That's becoming the new thing. Instead of utilizing banks, there's so many small hard money lenders out there that have terms very similar to bankers, and the hard money lenders that I've seen and used, they operate just like a hometown bank. So it's pretty great.
What is your perspective of single family versus multifamily?
Yeah, the difference that I see from single family to multifamily, you got to have a lot more money, compared to single family. I got into this business not having a dime. When I first initially thought about real estate, I thought you had to be well connected, and I thought you had to have money, but that is so far from the truth. And but when you're getting into it, it's much easier to get into a single family house than a multifamily. And for me, there's just so many differences. With a single family, if you ever want to sell it, it's easier to sell than potentially multifamily. There's the pool of people that would buy single family is much larger than a pool of people that would buy multifamily. There's also a huge difference. Okay, you have one family living at this property as a single family. Multifamily, you got multiple different people sharing a space. And so sometimes if you don't put the right people in place, it can get out of hand very quickly. And it really depends. For me, I didn't want a bunch of huge apartments. Sometimes that's what people want. And when I look at multifamily, that's what I look at. Even with my duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, I still kind of teeter that more towards the managing of single family homes almost. When I think of multifamily, I think of the bigger places. But I have noticed it is so much easier, for me anyway, to manage a single family house compared to just say a quadplex. Because just say a quadplex, you have a parking lot. What if somebody has too many people over? What if somebody doesn't take their trash can back? What if people are leaving and they just they junk up somebody else's area? You're getting more of those multiple calls, where a single family, you have that one point of contact. You call, hey, we have this issue. And so there's pros and cons for them both.